Good afternoon, Keith Tebow with you again. Time to talk some football. We're going to get an update from Fall River's semi-pro football team, the Troy City Titans, part of the East Coast Football League. Please be joined by Coach Anthony Comer. Coach, how are you, man? Nice to see you.
Pretty good. Thanks for having me again.
You know, we're about midway point of the season or so. Currently, the team a little more losses than wins. So how do you characterize the first part of the season?
Learning experience. You know, some of these guys that are on our team this year, they're brand new with zero semi-pro experience, and they're learning that this isn't just backyard football. That some of these guys that they're playing against, you know, have real life skills when it comes to playing football. You know, some got NFL background, some have, you know, big college background. Like the team we just played, the kid that played defensive end was at Boston College. You know, he was a late round draft pick. So these are real guys that they're playing against. So they're learning.
So, you know, as you look at this season, you know, we talked about when we first spoke briefly, just before the season started, that, you know, this is technically the second year of the Titans, right?
Correct.
1 year was 2019. COVID got in the way last year.
Correct.
You know, 2021 now, it's technically the second season of the Titans. What were you hoping to accomplish heading into the season? And I guess with about half a season to go, what do you hope to, you know, become as the season comes to an end?
Going into this year, especially being off last year, I think our momentum, if we would have continued the first year, if COVID never hit, I think the momentum, especially with the city, everything would have came together really nice. We kind of lost track with a lot of people, like I said, because of COVID. Not a lot of people wanted to come out, but now things are starting to get a little better. And we were hoping, honestly, to be undefeated at this point. You know, we thought we had the skill to be undefeated, but you still have to play the game. Unfortunately, it's not played on paper. But the second half of this season, we need to win out. We're hoping to just do that. You know, we got a tough game this Friday night. Tough team in the Admirals, but I believe that once we get our line up front, knowing exactly where to go, I mean, we can play with anybody.
So let me ask you personally, coach and quarterback, you know, Ryan Nave, another quarterback, has seen some time as well. Is it difficult for you to do both? I mean, let me just ask you, do you also call offensive plays generally, or do you have a coordinator for that? So how difficult is it to be coach and player?
So when I'm on the sideline, if Ryan's in the game, I'll call the plays for him. Jordan Lavery was been the offensive coordinator with myself, but you know, he's been busy this year. So again, finding more coaches have been tough, you know, and I would love for someone to come in and take over the play calling so I can just sit and yell at everyone. But playing quarterback and being a coach is tough. It is tough because my roles aren't just as head coach. You know, it's player, it's get the guys together, it's, you know, call a play in the huddle, and it's telling guys where to go because they're new to the offensive line or a new receiver. It's not easy. It's truly a headache, and I don't wish it on anybody to do what I have to do.
And it's also one of the things where it's also difficult to see what's happening because you're in the play, right? So if you're going back to pass, right, you got a rush coming, you can't see where the breakdowns, well, maybe you can, where the breakdowns could have been, right?
Sometimes.
In terms of the offensive line. So that must be difficult as well.
That's the other thing. So what I do is, like I tell Joe, I'm like, hey, you know, what are you seeing? But I entrust all the guys that are on my offense, especially on the sideline. It's not a dictatorship. You know what I mean? So if you guys see something, tell me, and let's, you know, try to involve it into the next drive. But it doesn't happen too often. You know, it should happen more, but it doesn't happen too often. But hopefully this week, like I said, we're gonna have a great practice on Thursday night, skill-wise, and then we'll see what happens on Friday night.
You know, you're the leader of the offense as quarterback. You know, before we get started, you talked about how you got some guys hurt. Talk a little bit about how that's been a little difficult scoring points. I know the last few weeks have been a little difficult.
Yeah, it's been tough. Go back a couple weeks ago when we traveled to New Hampshire. Like my son, who's one of the receivers on the team, he had hurt his knee. And his knee's been hurting for about a year. Can't figure out what's wrong with him. MRI shows nothing. But I tell him all the time, it's because he doesn't lift weights. Like, you got to get your skinny butt into the weight room. You get hurt tripping over a pebble on the ground. So he didn't play until the second half of last week's game. We scored 3 straight touchdowns, and we ran out of time. So not having him plus the other 3 receivers that were hurt, interchangeable guys with the offensive line. Just on the offensive side of the ball, there was no clicking going on.
Yeah.
Malik Clark has been a tremendous help in the backfield. The kid touched the ball, and he can go. Now it's time we're going to get him going this week. It's going to be a heavy dose of Malik left and Malik right.
Yeah. And let me go to the other side of the ball now. The game that we just did against Taunton, a lot of separation. Their receivers got some big separation there. How do you fix that?
So we had a couple of guys on defense that were down. We had 3 DBs down with 2 of the starters. But again, we still should have been fine. You know what I mean? It's just making sure these guys are in the right position to be successful and not be afraid to yell when they're not. It was a lot of, one guy make a call, not echoing it across the field. So a couple of those long plays where this guy knew what he was doing, but that guy on the other side of the field didn't because they weren't communicating with each other. With Calkins from the sideline from Coach George, and he's expecting the guys to be in one thing, come off the sideline and go, oh, they changed it. I'm like, okay, well, the communication aspect was the really breakdown last week, so that's really what happened.
Yeah. All right. Now, as we move forward, the last game we were at, there was a better crowd, nice crowd at Durfee High School, Mac Aldrich Field. How has the COVID impacted everything, as you mentioned, but how has the community support grown maybe a little more as this season has grown on a little bit?
This will always be a soccer city.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I shouldn't say unfortunately. Football is probably 5th behind badminton in this city. But we have a ton of kids from the Fall River area that we are giving them a different outlet. When this season first started, there was a couple of bad incidents that happened into the city. A couple people were shot and everything. Some of the guys on our team were family members of what happened. So, here we are getting these kids off of the street. And it's not like it's a fight with the city. It's just we just want more of the city to come out and support the city. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we want.
Yeah. All right, Anthony Comer, thank you, Coach.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you again.
Soon, and we'll wrap up the season. Maybe in a few weeks at the end of the season, we'll get a
playoffs.
wrap up.
Let's get to the playoffs.
All right. Thank you for joining us. I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great day.